Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes, focusing this time on the F Lydian mode, pivoting around the F note, which is located on the second string from the top of the guitar, fret number 8, part number 1. Remembering one of our major objectives is to get all of our resources orientated in the same direction to make them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar who is located behind the guitar. And therefore my guitar is going to be flipped around, making it look like I'm left-handed, but no, I'm playing it right-handed. We just want it to be mirroring what you're looking at from the perspective of behind your guitar. When we are behind the guitar, we have the fretboard on our left-hand side, the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling up top. We go from left to right towards the body of the guitar. This way we have orientated our worksheet similarly, where this represents the fretboard, this top E represents the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right, orientated as though you took your guitar from behind the guitar and just imprinted the strings on the screen. That way, hopefully, everything's kind of going in the same direction and we can spend all of our time just understanding these intervals. This time, looking at the intervals related to the Lydian mode, focusing on the pivot point, rotating around this F note that's going to be on the 8th fret of the guitar and on the second string, which you might call the A string. So let's give a quick recap of what we're doing in the project, because we want to have our reference point to try to cram as much information as possible when we're doing these kind of like theory types of exercises. Many of us only having like 15 minutes or so to try to crank out some theory, basically exercises. So we want to have them as chock full of the stuff that we need to work on as possible. So quick reminder, we're looking at this shape on fret number 5, which often people call shape number 1. From a caged perspective, you might call it a G-shaped, although it would be a C chord, because we would have this C here, and you could see that G shape inside of it. If it was a pentatonic, going from fret 5, which is an A on the top, here to A to A, 5-note pentatonic would look like that. Add in the 2 other notes for a 7-note scale. That, though, would be going from A to A, which is the way many people learn it, because that's just where the shape starts when they learn that first shape, and that, of course, would then be the A minor. But if we focus the starting and ending point on any other shape, then that on any other note, then we'll be playing a related mode. So we want to start to get the idea of these related modes as we go through them, noting that we can name any of the scales or modes, 7-note modes, by either learning the formula, meaning we can list out the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and so on, or we can just memorize the shape. I happen to just know that this shape, I know it under my fingers, and I know that that's going to be the A minor and related modes. Or I can think of any point, any note, and look at the intervals from that note, which is also quite useful because that's how we think of the chord construction. So that's kind of the method that we're working on this time. We typically start with the C because it's going to be the major scale being like the key, the reference point, the point of reference that we measure everything from. For example, I'm going to actually number the modes with an absolute numbering system that doesn't change. So if I say mode number 3, from this perspective, I'm going to say that that's the Phrygian mode. Now, it's only the Phrygian mode in relation, mode number 3 is only the Phrygian mode in relation to the C major scale, but by using that as my reference tool, it allows me to basically have a numbering system for the modes, which makes it easier for me to relate the modes to the major scale, which makes it easier for me to at least know if I'm talking about a major mode or a minor mode, because oftentimes we think about the notes in the major scale, these being the notes in the major scale, and whether or not we can make a major or minor chord, 3-note triad chord from it, and we start to memorize that the 1 makes a major chord, the 2 and the 3 make a minor chord, the 4 and the 5 make a major chord, and the 6 a minor chord, and the 7 a Locrian chord. So that's great, So that means that if I give a numbering system of the modes, I'm basically saying that at least gives me whether I make a major or minor chord from it, right? And then I can go beyond that and say I want to also think about the other intervals, the 7, 9, 11, and 13, beyond the triad, which I can't just know by knowing if I have a major or minor chord, 3-note triad, from it. I have to know the modes, the relationships of the modes. So we're going to basically work on that. We're going to work on the shapes so that I can see the intervals by shape and know the inverse shape of the intervals. As we do this, we're going to be focusing in on the shape of the C major mode and the related modes, the C major scale and related modes, because we're always going to be working in on this shape. And as we go through the different modes, we'll take a look at each of the different intervals. So we started with the C major, which has a perfect first, a 2-note away major second, a 4-note away major third, a 5-note away perfect fifth, a 5-note away perfect fourth, a 7-note away perfect fifth, a 9-note away major sixth, an 11-note away major seven. And then we went to the Dorian, which is a minor mode, which we often will compare then to the minor or main minor, which is the Aeolian, the minor scale. Then we went to the Phrygian, which is also a minor mode. Notice I'm going to call it absolute number 3 mode, and 3 in relation to the C major scale is the third, right? So it would make a minor scale, which means it's going to be a minor mode as well. Now we're going to go to the relative fourth note of the major scale, the F, and we note that because it's the fourth note, it's also going to be called, in my absolute numbering system, the fourth mode as it relates to the major scale. And I know that the fourth makes a major chord because it constructs a major third. That's the defining characteristic of a major chord from a minor chord. And therefore, because it makes a major chord, it also has a major mode. And that's because when I construct a mode from it and I skip every other note, it has that major third in it. That's the defining characteristic. But it's not going to have all of the notes that are the same as the major scale or the Ionian mode, because if I go beyond the 1, 3, 5 to the 7, 9, 11, and 13, then we're going to have some different intervals. So as I'm on the Lydian mode, then I'm going to say, okay, I know it's a major mode. And if I compare any of the major modes, there's 2 major modes that are not the Ionian. There's the Ionian or major scale and the 2 other major modes, which are the Lydian and Mixolydian. Each of these will have all of the intervals which will be the same as the major scale except 1. So all I have to do then is know what that one different interval is, which in this case is a funny one for the Lydian, because it's the fourth interval, which has, we're going to call it an augmented fourth, which notice my numbering system here is a little bit off, because you can also call that same interval a diminished fifth, and that's how my worksheet works, just because of the formulas in the worksheet. So I have to be able to say, wait, I don't want it to be a fifth because I'm missing the fourth. There's the 1, 2, 3, 5. No, it should be a 4, but it's still a 6-note away augmented fourth. Now, this is one of the Western music system is really cool in many ways because it allows you to use all the notes on each scale and whatnot, but it also has major drawbacks as well, which is that you can call the same interval 2 different names, and you need to call it 2 different names if it happens in a particular scale, and notes have 2 different names, which all makes that kind of weird and funny. So there's pros and cons on the structure of how they started to number the musical system in Western music is really interesting, really cool in some ways, but also, it has its pros and cons. So, but I'm liking it more and more as I work with it. I'm trying to appreciate the great things it has that it does allow us to do. So the reason I hesitate there is because it is a human construction at the same time, right? The music is not a human construction, but naming it is. And again, it seems kind of weird that you'd come up with all these, like 2 names for the same notes and 2 names for the same intervals and so on and so forth. So, so you can kind of imagine, is that really like the most efficient way to do it all at one time? But at the same time, it works great, and that's what So that's how it's all set up. So a lot of times you might come up with your own systems sometimes to try to make things work in your mind, while also trying to appreciate, you know, the how everything is laid out. Anyways, so anyway, so now let's go into we're looking at the intervals now for the Lydian. So we're just going to make it the 1, and that means if I change that 1 interval, I could easily go from a Lydian mode to a major scale. So in other words, one way you might be thinking of this, you might say, hey, look, I'm only learning these 1 scale with all these 1 notes in it, and I can't do anything else with it. Well, of course, you can play all the other modes, because then you can just, if you can locate the notes, you can make that the pivot point. And if you play all the other modes, that'll sound really different. And you can also then, if you learn the 1 interval difference between all of the modes and its related major or minor, that's one way that you can pivot to a lot of other keys, right? Meaning, I like if I know this shape is the same as I played if it was on the A and then the C. I'm just playing the same shape here. And then if I could find the augmented fourth, which is similar to it, the same distance as a diminished fifth, which is the B, then I can simply shift that B. It's been shifted up. It's been augmented to the right. So I can shift it back, and that would transform my shape. Just that one shift would transform my shape from playing in Lydian to playing in, instead of playing in F Lydian, it would transform me to be playing in F major, right? And then you can think about, well, what are all the related modes of F major? And then you can start to play with those things, right? So remember that as we shift from scale to scale, there's many different ways I can visualize it in my mind. I can say I have this shape, and then I can say, well, I'm going to switch my mind to playing the shape that is now in F major instead of F Lydian, and then I'll shift, the whole shape will shift so that I'll have that in my mind. Or I can say, well, I'm going to reconstruct the from this note using the formula whole half instead of the Lydian formula, right? Or I'm going to say that I'm just going to think of the shape that I know and pinpoint the 1 interval difference, and I'll just shift that difference, right? I'll just shift that interval because I know that's the difference between the two, so I can still kind of think of the same shape in my mind, but then just be mindful of that 1 note that I'm shifting. All right, those are all doing the same thing. It's just a different way of how I'm seeing it, like in my mind. And then if I can do all of those, see it in all those ways, then that's what really understanding is, right? The more ways I can look at it and say, oh, that's the same thing. All right, so let's do this. And enough rambling, enough talk, man. You're just a talker. I like to see a doer. I want to see a doer. All right, we're doing stuff now. I'm gonna stop. Keep talking, man. Just keep talking, son of a. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me or anything. All right, we're gonna get. This is gonna be the F. So the F. Let's look at the octaves first. So let's go above it. Now the octave is 12 distance away. Whether we go, there's no inverse of it because it's gonna go around the whole circle. So if I'm in a circle and the circle has 12 steps, I can go clockwise or counterclockwise around the circle, and it's still gonna be 12 steps, right? So if I go up 1, it's gonna be, actually I should go this way. Maybe let's go this way. It's going past the 12 here, but that's okay. We're going to say this is going to be, I'll call it -5 when I go up, because the distance between 2 strings is 5 notes except over the fault line. -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, and then 0 or 12 again. So I'm going to be here. So there's the F that I'm working on. If I go up, what, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, or 12. So boom, boom. And that's actually the same note. So that means that anytime I go up a string, the octave is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward, except when I cross the fault line. And there's only one time that I can go up 1 string and cross the fault line. That's when I'm on the B string. So if I were on the B string and I crossed the fault line, notice we're here, it would only be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up. Right, because this tectonic plate, I'm going to stop saying right. I feel like I'm saying right, right? Am I right? Do you agree with me? It's like, I can't hear you. You can't hear me. Why are you asking? Okay, I'm going to stop asking. I'm going to stop saying right. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm saying. I don't need no approval. I am right. Anyway, so we're going to take this. We're going to move it to the right because the tectonic shift. So that means that if we go up one string, the octave is going to be 5 frets forward unless we're crossing the fault line, which only happens on the B string if I'm only going up one string, in which case the octave will be 4 frets forward. All right, makes perfect sense. Let's go down a string. So down a string, it's just the opposite. We can go backwards. So this is going to be -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 0 or 12. So let's go here, -5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, or 12. So boom, boom. So, okay. So that means that at any time I go down a string, the octave will be 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen in one location. That would be the G string, because that's the only time that I'm going to cross this fault line if I go down only one string. So therefore, it would look like that. So therefore, if I go down one string, the octave is always going to be 5 frets back unless I'm crossing the fault line, which only happens on the G string if I'm going down one string, in which case the octave is 4 frets back. Okay? I'm asking for approval again. Okay? Is that okay? Can I say that? Or is that going to be upsetting? I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to be a talker. So let's go down. let's go down 2 strings. So we're going to say this is going to be 5, 10, and then 11, 12. 5, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to be here. We're going to say this is going to be 5, 10, 11, 12. That's possibly the most common and well-known octave to most people. So therefore, if I go down 2 strings, the octave is always going to be 2 frets up, unless I cross the fault line, which could happen on 2 strings, right? If I go up a string, I'm not going to cross the fault line because it's going to go from here to here. That's no problem, no hay problema, pero. But if I go down like here, then I cross the fault line right there. And then and also if I was on like this string, like if that was my starting point, I would cross the fault line right here. So therefore, if I go down 2 strings, and then the octave is always going to be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which happens on 2 strings when I start on the D string or when I start on the G string, in which case the octave is going to be 3 frets forward. Okay? Is that okay? Okay? Let's go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes back here. So if I go down 4, it's going to be 5, 10, and then we cross the fault line. The tectonic plate has shifted up. We've got to recognize that, or you get in the wrong location. You won't be able to meet people for lunch because you didn't realize that the tectonic plate shift the cafe up a street, up a whole block. So we go up here. This is 5, 10, 15. And so we can bring that down to 3, 15 minus 12, because there's only 12 notes, down to 3. So 3, 2, 1, 0, or octave. Boom. Shock alaka. Let's go down this way. 5, 10, and then we shift up 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0, or 12. Octave found. So that means that if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the octave is going to be 2 frets back. Now, when is that going to happen? I'm going to cross the fault line here and then here, and that's so 2 times I'm going to cross the fault line out of only 3 times I can actually do that to have enough strings. Meaning, like if I was on the top string, then I wouldn't cross the fault line, so I'm still going to call that the default. But I'm going to cross the fault line here, and I'm also going to cross the fault line here if I was on these 2 strings, and I can't go down another string because then I run out of real estate, run out of strings, right? So that means, but I'm still going to call the default that I don't cross the fault lines because that's how I'm orientating it in my mind. So I'm going to go down, so if I go down 3 strings the octave is going to be 1, 2, 3 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which actually happens 2 out of 3 of the possible times, which means that if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, it's only the octave is 2 frets back. Makes perfect sense. All right, let's go down 4 strings. If I go down 4 strings, I have to cross the fault line. It's not my fault I had to cross the fault line. It's the fault line's fault. It's in the name. It's in the name. It's the fault line's fault. Let's go down. If I go down 4, it's going to be 5, 10. Oh, I could find this the other way. Like I could go up and say 5, 6, 7, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Wait a sec. 5, negative 5, and then negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11, a negative 12. Or I could go this way, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. It's actually better, shorter distance this way. So there's going to be the octave. So I'll just do this. If I go down 1, 2, 3, 4 strings, then the octave will always be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward, no exception, because there's no way I can go down 4 strings and not cross the fault line, because I can only go down 4 strings if I'm on the top string, the E string, or the second to top string, the A string, because if I was down another string, then I wouldn't have any real estate. And if I'm on these top 2 strings, the only way I could go down 4 strings is if I cross the fault line. So therefore, there's no exceptions to the rule. All right then, makes perfect sense. Let's go to the next one down. We're gonna go down to the G. This is a 2 note away major second. This number 2 represents the second position in our scale of the Lydian scale, scale number 4, mode number 4, scale number 4, Lydian scale, and this number 2 represents the distance 2 notes away, which is the same as the main major. C major has a second that's also 2 notes away, as does the main minor, by the way, the Aeolian. For some reason, it's the Phrygian that's really more minor than the main minor, more minor than Aeolian. But we're looking at the major. So notice when I count in terms of chord construction, we skip every other note. So it's 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, and then we go to the 7, which is the last note in the scale, and then we go to the 9. So for our purposes, the 9 is equivalent to the 2, even though we're not talking about octaves. We're just going around in a circle. Just going around in a circle, just like we're doing in life here. We just go around in circles. No big deal. It's not nothing to get all worked up about. Just going around in circles. All right, so let's do, so now we're going to say, so we've got a 2 note away major second. So if I'm on the same string, then I can just count 2 up. So 2 note away major second from that F. Sounds like that. Purdy. All right, now if I go up a string, then I have to look for the inverse distance. It's inverse distance. So if it's 2 notes away and there's 12 notes, the circle has 12 notes, steps in it. And if I go one way around the circle, it's 2 steps, but I'm looking for the other way around the circles. 12 minus 2 would be 10 steps. So it's going to be negative 5 if I go up. I usually say between the 2 strings, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10. So there it is. So I could say it's that G right there. G whiz. No, it's GF. Now if I go from top to bottom, that's going to be a, what do we call it? A 10 note away minor 7. 10 note away minor 7, the bluesy kind of thingy. But if I go from bottom to top, therefore, it's a 2 note away major second, remembering that the inverse of a major is a minor and the inverse of a minor is a major. That's just how things work. That's how it's done. That's how we see it, because that's how it is. So that means if I go up 1 string, the 2 note away major second is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which is only going to happen 1 time if I'm on the B string. That's the only time I can cross that fault line. So if I was down here on the B string, what's going to happen? There's my G right here. It's further away. Why? Because this whole tectonic plate shifted to the right. It shifted to the right, so I have to swim across the ocean further to get to the location. I'm not going to make it because that's too far. My fingers can't even reach that far. Luckily, this is an open string, so I don't have to reach it. I can still play it open, but otherwise I would drown because I can't reach. That's just out of reach. All right. So that's going to be right there. Let's go down. Let's go down one. I'm looking for the 2-note away major second, which is also the 2-note away major 9. So if I go down one, that's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2. 5, 4, 3, 2. So it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2. If I count it up over here, there's the F. Where's the F? There's the F. 5, 4, 3, 2. So we're going F to G. So that's going to be, that means that if I go down one string, the 2-note away major second is always going to be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line. And I can only cross the fault line if I was on the G string, because that's the only way I can go down one string and cross the fault line. So like if I was on that F and I cross the fault line and I'm looking for the G, because I'm looking for like a 2-note away major second, which is also like a 2-note away major 9, then it would only be 2 frets back. So the general rule is if I go down one string, the 2-note away major second, otherwise could be called the 2-note away major 9, is 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which can only happen one time on one string, the G string. And then if I go down one string, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, is only 2 frets back. Okay? Is that okay for me to say that? Or does that cause problems? Does that anger people? I feel like that should be something you're allowed to say. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing it out there. Let's go down another string. Let's say we go 3 strings down. It's going to be, we're looking for the 2-note away major second, 5, 10, 5, 10, 11, 12, or 0. If 12 minus 12 is 0, and then 1, 2. 1, 2. Let's buckle that shoe if you want to. I don't need to buckle my shoe. I've got shoelaces, but still, you get the same thing. You need to keep the shoe somewhat fastened to the foot. That's the point. Anyways, so we're going to say this is going to be 5, 10, 11, 12. There's the octave. 1, 2. Boom, there's the G. All right, Gee whiz. Gee whiz, man. So that means that if I go down 2 strings, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, is 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which could happen 2 of the strings, either in the D string or the G string. Otherwise, I'm good, right? Because if I was on this F up here, then it would still be, the 2-note away major second would still be 4 frets away. But like if I was on like this F instead, then like the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. Also, if I was on like this string, we'd have a similar thing, but let's not do that because that's out of the picture. So that means that if I go down 2 strings, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, would be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, in which case the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, would be 5 frets forward because this tectonic plate shifted up, and there's 2 exceptions to the rule that can happen on, which is like the D string and the G string. Okay, let's go down. Okay, I'm going to stop saying okay. Stop saying okay. You're not looking for approval. I'm telling you how it is. I'm telling you how it is. I'm not asking here. I know how it is, and I'm saying what it is. I don't care. I do care a little bit, but I'm trying not to because it's like distracting. So I'm going to go down 3 strings. Let's go down 3 strings. So it's going to be 5, 10, and then we shift up because of the tectonic plate shift to 15, and then 15 minus 12 is 3, minus 1 is 2. So let's count it this way. 5, 10, shifting up to 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, minus 1 to 2. So if I go, oh, wait a sec. So if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 2-note away major second, which could also be called the 2-note away major 9, is on the same fret. But if I didn't cross the fault line, which would happen if I was on like the top string, then then it would be back one. So like here. And I'm going to cross the fault line 2 out of the 3 possible ways, because like if I was down here, I could still go down 3 strings and I would cross the fault line, like if I was here. But I can't go down 3 strings if I was on the G string. Why? Because I run out of real estate. By real estate, I mean strings. The fault line is here. It shifted up. Everything below the fault line, it fell into the ocean, just like California is going to do one of these days. God's just going to say, I've had enough. I've had enough. And the whole thing's just going to fall into the ocean. No, that's not going to happen. Stop being, it'll be okay. So we're going to, so if we go down 3 strings, the general rule, if you go down 3 strings, then the 2-note away major second or 2-note away major 9 is going to be 1 fret back, unless you cross the fault line, which happens 2 out of the 3 times that you can go down 3 strings, in which case, if you go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 2-note away major second or 2-note away major 9 will be on the same fret. Let's do the next one. So now let's say that we go down 4 strings, and we're looking for the G whiz over here. All right, so I could do this by going up a string. So I could say, well, I know this is the same E as here, even though it's a different octave. So if I found like the note up here, then it would be the same down there. So I could be like 2-note away major second. But if I go above, I have to look for the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 2, which is 10. So then I'd have to say like this is -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10. And if that's the G, then that must be the G. Both of those G's would then be a 2-note away major second if I think of it as a circle, not getting into octaves from that F. But I could count it down this way too, which means it would be 5, 10, fault line going up here to 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 to get to that same one. Therefore, if I go down 4 strings, the 2-note away major second will always be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back without any exception, because if I was up like on this string up top, then I'd have to still cross the fault line if I went down 4 strings. And if I was below that string, I'd run out of real estate, because when the earthquake happened and like shifted this tectonic plate to the right, everything below it fell into the ocean. And so there's nothing, so there's no more real estate, because the houses, they didn't just burn, they fell in, they fell into the ocean, which is even worse, if you can believe it. And so they're gone right there. That's my, that's just the story I have in my mind. It's a very vivid story. That's not like a real thing. That's like a learning, a learning visualization that I find effective. Let's stop it here. Let's try to do all the rest of them next time. Otra vez. I feel like I feel like I need to stop.